Did you know ASBN, America's Small Business Network, is now available on your TV? That's right. ASBN is now streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire Stick, and available for download in the App Store. Scan the QR code to download the ASBN app today. Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of The Small Business Show, exclusively right here at ASBN.com and now streaming on Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV. Is age just a number when it comes to building a successful business? We're about to find out. Joining us now to share his perspective is George Deeb. You've seen him here before at ASBN.com. He's also an author, Forbes Contributor, and managing partner at Red Rocket Ventures. George, thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us once again on the show.
Great to be back, Jim.
Sure. So let's cut right to the chase here. Does age matter with entrepreneurship?
You know, at the end of the day, I don't think that it does. I mean, I've seen examples of success at, every age of entrepreneur that has been able to launch a successful business.
Sure.
What matters most at the end of the day is experience. Mm-hmm. And often experience comes with age or it comes with mentorship. And that's really the difference.
Yeah. Have there been any formal studies done on this topic?
There have been. The three come to mind. There was a study done a few years ago by the Kauffman Foundation. Duke University did a study on this. The Founder Institute did a study on this. And, there's a lot of thought leadership has gone behind this topic.
Sure. What did they find?
The average, I would say, is 40 years old is the average age of starting a new business.
Okay.
But
sense.
The most interesting data point was that the businesses that were launched by people over 55
mm-hmm.
are twice as likely to generate material revenues than the businesses that were launched under 35.
Okay.
And again, that you could correlate that to age, but
Sure.
is more likely experience because those older executives have got years of learnings under their belt that they're bringing to their next startup.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that kind of makes sense too, because, if you're 55 or older, you're more established. To your point, you've got more experience, you've got more money in the bank, you've got a little more staying power, and you look at things a little bit differently, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think the things definitely change with your mindset about how you approach an entity based on your years and, how much risk are you willing to take and things like that.
Sure. Have you ever studied the average age of founders of the most successful companies in the world?
I did. I wrote a blog post on this topic a while back. And what I learned was you have the low end of the range, 20 years old, 21 years old, startups like Facebook, Microsoft and Apple were all launched by very young entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And obviously they become very successful companies.
Sure.
All the way up to companies like, Walmart and McDonald's were launched by executives that were 44 to 53 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a wide range. The success can be had anywhere along that curve.
Right. So I know you've launched many startups yourself. What has been your personal experience here?
Well, I've launched about 6 companies.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I was 18 years old, and the most recent one I was 48 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that generated the most revenues was the last one, the one where I was 48. Again, I don't think it was because of my age. I think it was because of experience that led to that success.
Sure. What do venture capitalists feel, or venture, investor, I should say, venture capital investors think about this subject? Are they looking for any one particular age group?
Yeah, it's not that they're looking for a particular age group, but they don't want to make mistakes with their money.
Yeah.
So, I had an investor in one of my early startups, and he made a quote to me that, as a rule, he does not invest in startups of a first-time CEO.
Yeah.
He's made enough mistakes with first-time CEOs that first-time CEOs make mistakes.
Right.
And if you can get a serial CEO that has done it several times over and is not going to make the same mistake of a first-time CEO,
right,
you're going to have a much typically higher return on your invested capital.
Sure.
Less mistakes are being made.
Sure. Any other considerations when assessing a person's age on their potential success as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think the first thing is your risk profile definitely changes, right? When you're younger and single and you don't have kids, you're a gunslinger, right? You go out there and
I remember. That's right.
You'll invest big, and it doesn't. If you lose it all, who cares?
That's right. You're back on somebody's couch, right? No big deal.
If you're older, if you're a middle-aged executive and you got kids, all of a sudden you start worrying about gambling with the kids' college money. So
That's right.
Your risk profile definitely changes as you get older.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that changes is your energy levels.
Yeah,
When you're younger, you can burn the candle at both ends of the stick and work the midnight oil and work around the clock, and you're putting in a lot of hustle into your startup. When you're older, you don't necessarily have that same level of energy. You need to get a good 8 hours of sleep each night.
That's right.
But what comes with the older executive is that experience allows them to be more efficient, more effective with their time,
Sure.
that they don't need to put in the midnight oil to get to that same level of success, because they're going to be twice as efficient in getting to the end result.
That's right. That's right. And there's also should be said that it's easier for a more seasoned CEO or founder, I should say, to get those much needed funds if they do find themselves in a little bit of hot water or trouble, to say, hey, we need another 100,000 or another million or whatever the case might be. It would seem to me that individual that is, let's say, north of 45 is going to have much more access to funds than somebody that is under 30, right? Or under 25, for instance, right?
Yeah, I would say that older executive has more relationships. They've been down that road several times in the past. They probably had negotiations with 3 or 4 banks along the way. They probably had negotiations with 3 or 4 venture capitalists along the way, or more.
Sure.
And they know who to call when the house is on fire.
That's right. That's right. And perhaps maybe even delve into some of their equity in their home or properties or whatever the case might be. They might have some other monies out there that are outside of the initial investors, right?
They have a bigger cushion, right? When something goes wrong, they most likely know that before even launching that business, they needed to have a cushion in place.
That's right.
And they have the rainy day funds sitting in reserve, ready to go when they need them.
That's right. Now, let me ask you, you mentioned something, one of your colleagues says, I don't invest in first-time founders or first-time CEOs, if they're too young, they don't have the experience behind them. We've talked about this particular point before with you on the show, and that is putting together a board so that, let's say, the young 25-year-old says, I got the greatest technology for healthcare and we've built it and it's great and I need money, but it's the first time I've ever been a CEO and we need to hire 50, 100 people. There might be, to your point, some people like, hey, this is first time out there. We don't know how this is going to go. Therein lies the importance of having a really great board, right? Somebody or a group of individuals that are seasoned in this area that can guide that new CEO, right?
Yeah, for sure. At the board level, you want to surround yourself with people that have experience with the challenges that are going to be coming in front of you. And your management team,
right.
You might be 21 years old, but you might have a couple 40-year-olds around the table that have done this before, and you're leaning on their experience.
Sure.
Or you're leaning on mentors or seasoned professionals that you've got in your network that you can pick up the phone and call and network with, that can help get you up the curve to help fill in the holes for what you're missing by yourself.
That's right. That's right. And as you've said before, sometimes putting together that board, it doesn't necessarily even cost a whole lot of money. It could be some equity that you break off for that seasoned board, right? Somebody that a group of individuals that can really help you steer that company. Doesn't necessarily come with this huge payday, right?
Yep, for sure. A board, have varying levels of expectations based on their years of experience and the size of the company. But anybody that's willing to get involved with an early stage, they're probably happy to help and get a small equity stake, and you're not going cash out of pocket for their expertise.
That's right. That's right. Hey, if I know I've asked you this before, I might ask you every month. So forgive me for that, but it's always timely because it's asked of us all the time, whether it be through social or emails or what have you. Right now, as we sit here in the middle of September, is now a good time to start a business? There's a lot of headwinds out there. There's a lot of things out there in the economy that make people nervous, that say, "Ooh, maybe I'll hold off," whether you're 25 or 55. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, from a market perspective, I think the venture capitalists are being more conservative today than they've been in years past.
Sure.
And it'll make it harder to raise the capital. But if you've got the capital, if you got access to capital, sometimes the best investments are made, at the low end of the curve, right? So while everybody's running away, if you can identify where that market opportunity is, where that white space is for you to kind of lean into it, you can invest at typically much better terms now than you could trying to get into that market during the peak. So if you've got the capital and you've got the risk appetite and you want to let it run its course, there's no reason you can't do it today. You just got to understand the challenges that will be in front of you.
Sure. One friend of mine that's a serial entrepreneur, he said every single time somebody asks me that question, I tell him, yeah, now's a terrible time to start a business. He goes, I don't want the competition. He goes, I'm running right out and I'm opening up my business, and I hope others aren't in this space, and I hope that they wait. He says, it's that much less competition I've got to worry about. So kind of sneaky, but I agree with you. Everything that you said. So you're spot on, as you are usually spot on with your advice to entrepreneurs. So George Deeb, managing partner at Red Rock Adventures, and somebody that you can count on for great advice when it comes to starting a business, growing a business, selling a business. You're the man. So thank you so much for all your contribution, and until next time, stay
I
well.
appreciate it, Jim. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.